4th of October 1936, I was only a lad of 16.
In October 1936, then I went up the East End of London to a street called Cable Street because Mosley has said he's going to march. And there was thousands and thousands of people, from dockers to nurses and doctors. They weren't going to let them take over the streets of London. The British people in London were not going to let Mosley and his fascist thugs do it.
It was May 2015 and we had a gig in Somerset, Clevedon, and at the end of the evening a guy comes over to us with 2 pieces of paper. One of them was a picture, this picture, and he said, "This is my dad." And he handed me the other piece of paper and he said, "This is what he did."
Yeah, I spoke to the lads and said, well, this is all about my father, who also comes from Stockton-on-Tees.
And on the other piece of paper was just an amazing list of achievements, really, and it read like a checklist of some of the defining moments of working class struggle in the early 20th century. He'd been at Cable Street, he'd been to the Spanish Civil War, he'd fought in the Second World War. As a teenager he'd walked to London 230 miles. His name was Johnny Longstaff.
Said our farewells, and I didn't hear anything for 3 or 4 months. And then Sean phoned me out of the blue and said, "We're very interested in your show." So
Duncan Longstaff, his son, had come along, introduced it to us and said, "I really hope you'd write a song about my dad if you can." And we've ended up writing 16 and put this whole show together about it.
Throughout the world, whether it be Australia or New Zealand, whether it be India or what, there was a feeling in the whole of the world, in every town and village in Britain, I can honestly say,
There's a song sung up in the mountain, and there's a song upon the sea.
We're folk singers from Teesside, the northeast of England. We sing songs and we write songs about real people who do amazing, extraordinary things. This show is something different for us. This is a show about one story, one man. His name was Johnny Longstaff, and he's going to tell the story in his own words, and how our original songs are going to weave and dance in and out of his own voice.
The sooner there will be peace beneath the branches of the lime and olive tree.
from the moment in 1935 that we started to invite these young refugees, then we started to know the reason they were refugees was their mothers and fathers were in concentration camps at places like Dachau. And the world was saying we didn't know of these things. Of course they knew of these things. We knew in 1935 what was happening.
In the 1980s, the Imperial War Museum, to mark the 50th anniversary of the start of the war in Spain, recorded hours and hours of testimonies from many of the survivors who were lucky enough to come back to Britain and Ireland. And we're so lucky to be able to draw on that and from the testimonies of other veterans to present to you this amazing story.
It was a pleasure to sit with your father, Duncan, for weeks on end, sort of just going back and forth, finding lines, but sometimes it would get a little bit infuriating because I'd get to the point where I would think I've got the perfect summation of the story, and then he would remember something else, and he'd change subject. And the amount of times that my housemate would suddenly hear me just go, "Oh, bloody hell, Johnny."
It wasn't only a change of subject, it was a change in time as well.
Yeah, we'd
So
skip.
you never knew where exactly he was.
Carrying the coffin all the way to London town, and we will work once more.
Johnny Longstaff was an ordinary man who witnessed and achieved extraordinary things.
If they were expecting glory, they didn't get any glory. If they were expecting to come back as heroes, they didn't come back as heroes. If they were expecting rewards, they didn't get any rewards. They were the first people to be victimised.
What drew us to Johnny instantly was his voice. It was because it's our voice. It's a Teesside voice. It's bold. It's rough around the edges. It's got warmth. It's got humour, and so we recognised the voice. And I think a lot of the people who came to the show knowing nothing about the Spanish Civil War or any of the horrors that Johnny had to witness, or any of the things you did, when they heard that voice, they were warm to it, they were drawn into it.
There I had my first meal, Spanish meal, and I swear I was eating cod's eyes. I was eating things I'd never seen in my life.
The world that Johnny was born into was a completely different world. The poverty is just unimaginable, I think.
There's a lot of passion in his voice, so it is, even though he's talking very down to earth, he still knows how to tell a story. He knows how to communicate. So that's perfect for, when we were editing it, even though I joke about having to skip around and that kind of thing, there's so much passion in his voice, and there's so much rhythm in his voice as well. It's like the perfect thing to put to music, because there's so much, the way he emphasises certain words, the way that there's rhythm in certain words, really lends itself to put into music in a way. A part of me almost suspects that deep down he knew that one day his words would be put over a 4/4 beat, and he thought, right, I'm going to time it like this. Here we go.
The man who was in charge looked at me. Go on, you bastard. I hope you don't come back. They knew where we were going. They couldn't stop us. I'd done nothing wrong. They couldn't stop me.
As night fell on the channel and the wind sang on the sea, I thought about those young lads and the times they sang with me.
It's unlike anything we've ever done.
Told of freedom,
But it feels like part of us, it feels like who we are. Even though Johnny's world is distant and in many ways impossible to relate to, there are so many parallels with things today. It gives us an immense sense of pride to be able to share it. The Ballad of Johnny Longstaff.
My name is John Longstaff, Stockton-on-Tees, 1919.
and as morning broke on Dieppe and the sun began to shine, I'll take this tiny picture so wherever I may be, there'll be Jim and Jack and Ed